Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Heatblur F-4 Phantom air-to-air refueling tutorial. My name is 104th Maverick, and I'll be taking you through how to get to grips with this challenging procedure so you can extend the range of your Phantom sorties and hopefully get some kills along the way. Let's get started. Okay, so here we are in the observation position as number 4 in the flight. On this occasion, however, we will be refueling first, as this is what we've briefed on the ground. So we're going to drop back slightly and move right towards the pre-contact position. Before we do that, however, we're going to make sure that our master arm switch is in the safe position, and we're also going to turn our radar to standby. We do this using the Jester AI menu. The default key for the menu is A for Alpha, and we simply move our head to make the selection to command Jester to turn the radar to standby. So we select radar, operation, and standby.
Roger.
Our radar is now off, and we can safely move to pre-contact. Now, before we get too close to the tanker, we really want to put in a lot of effort into making sure our trim is set up correctly. The goal for you here should be to trim the aircraft out so that you could take your hand off the stick for a second or two and the aircraft will not veer off to the left or right or go up or down. The more work you put into getting the trim right at this stage, the easier making contact is going to be. Okay, so now we're trimmed. Let's get our fuel door open. We do this by coming down to our fuel system panel and selecting our Air Refuel switch to extend. Doing so opens the fuel door, illuminates the receptacle visual lamps. It also depressurizes the fuel cells and activates the transfer pumps to redistribute the received fuel for centre of gravity maintenance. It also activates the Air Refuel ready lamp on the canopy bow. We also want to configure our refuel selection switch. This provides options for 2 modes of refueling: internal tanks and all tanks. So having all tanks selected includes the external tanks in the refuel operation. Alright, I'll go ahead and press the air refuel switch now as I have it bound to my HOTAS, and we can see that we have the ready light on. Once we connect to the tanker, this light will automatically go out. I'll also contact the tanker here and let them know that we are ready. Sadly, the visibility out of the old girl is not fantastic for doing air-to-air refueling, so we have to adjust our seating position to be able to maintain visual with the PDL Pilot Director Light System. At the front of the tanker, you'll see 2 light strips. The lights on the left hand side display our vertical position, and the lights on the right hand side display our forward and aft position. So if the light on the left moves up, we are too high. If it moves down, we are too low. And if the light on the right hand side moves up, we are too far back. And if it moves down, we are too far forward. The goal for us is to keep both lights in the middle position as much as possible. We adjust our seating position by moving the change seat position button forward or backward. I highly recommend that you bind this switch to something on your controls if you can, or easy to reach keyboard buttons. In real life, pilots would move the seat all the way up so that they're looking at the PDL system over the top of the canopy bow. Now, this is possible in DCS when you're using VR, however sadly it's not possible while flying in 2D. Well, it is possible, but you have to lean over to the left or right to see the lights, which isn't that comfortable, so what we are going to do is move our seat position down to maintain visual with the PDL system. Now, I've turned on the control overlay for you guys here, and one of the things that I really want to stress is just how sensitive the F4 engines are. With some other jets, you can really have a large range of motion on the throttles to stay in the same place as you take fuel. However, in the F4, especially when the aircraft is light on fuel, the throttle inputs required are tiny, so try to be as precise as you can and make small but frequent changes to your throttle position. Remember, there is no magic position on the throttle that keeps the aircraft exactly where it is. We are always adjusting the throttle backward and forward slightly to maintain a steady position. Now, as I settle and get into position here, you'll see that I make some big changes on the throttle position just to get established in the correct position for contact. However, once I get contact, notice how these inputs gradually become much smaller and more precise. Now initially, as we approach the boom, we want to be dead centre on the yellow line under the tanker and slightly lower than the boom. As we get closer, the boom operator will move the boom up to allow us to slot under it. It's at this stage we want to be looking at the PDL system and lining up the left light, which shows our vertical position first. Once we have that light centred, we want to slowly move forward to centre the right hand light, which puts us in the correct fore and aft position for the boom operator to make contact.
We're taking fuel.
Okay, now that we're in, it's really important to relax and just react to what Jester is telling you and what the PDL system is displaying. When connected, Jester does an amazing job at telling you which way you are drifting and will call out drift trends before a light on the PDL system changes. Depending on how steady you are, Jester will be throwing a lot of information at you at this stage, but it's important that you take it all in and react to what he is saying to correct any drift. I interviewed a former United States Air Force Phantom pilot while doing the research for this video, and he confirmed that the Jester behaviour is very realistic, and that during the refuel procedure, the Rio would almost always constantly be talking about the aircraft's position.
You're taking fuel. Drifting aft. Nice. We're good.
As we take on more fuel, the aircraft weight obviously changes, and as a result the CG moves position. Making some small trim inputs as you're tanking can really help you stay as stable as possible.
You are drifting forward.
If you have an extension on your stick, however, you may find that you don't need to do this and you can just manually manage the inputs with slight corrections. I personally don't have a stick extension, so I like to make small pitch trim changes as the aircraft gets heavier.
You're drifting up.
Now, one thing that's important to note is that when you fall off the boom, because you definitely will, especially when you're new to doing this, you'll notice that the disengaged light illuminates. So before you try and reconnect again, you will need to recycle your air refuel switch. So drop down and back, turn the air refuel switch off and back on again, and then get reconnected back up. With regards to disconnecting from the tanker, you can either call the tanker in the radio menu and select abort rejoin and leave with the fuel that you have, or wait for the tanks to be full and the boom operator will automatically disconnect the boom. In both instances, it's important to remember to turn off the air refuel switch. There are some very handy full lights that will illuminate when each of the external tanks are fully topped up on the canopy bow next to the ready light, so watch out for those coming on during the refuel. And there we go guys, that about wraps up how to do the AAR in the Phantom. Remember, it's a tricky procedure, especially in this aircraft, so if you're having a nightmare of a time, don't be too hard on yourself. It will take a lot of practice to become proficient at this. But stick at it, it is really worth it for the feeling of accomplishment once you start to get it nailed. Now, one thing before we go. Full disclosure, this refuel was done with a very light aircraft. Trying to refuel a very heavy Phantom is a totally different experience. That's because, just like in real life, you need to go into afterburner to maintain position with the tanker, and Heatblur have done an absolutely fantastic job at replicating this for us in DCS World. So what I'll show you now is a quick demo of how to top up a fully laden Phantom that is stacked to the nines with bombs. In real life, refueling very heavy Phantoms would be done by having just one engine in afterburner and modulating the other engine to maintain contact. You will at times need to kick the second engine into afterburner, but for the most part you're sitting just in afterburner in one engine and managing the second engine in dry power. Obviously you need a split throttle to do this, and I appreciate not everyone has one. However, this same procedure is still possible without a split throttle, you just need to be a bit more careful about how much afterburner you use with both engines. The only thing different, apart from managing just one engine, is that we need to do some rudder to maintain our position while having one engine and afterburner. So with steady feet, we can stay in position while we walk our single engine up and down through the power range. I've included the controls indicator here too, so that you guys can see what my inputs are as we take on this tricky transfer.
Go forward 15. She is thirsty.
You're taking fuel.
Watch it, you're charging the boom. You're drifting up. Careful, you're about to fall off. Hey, you're drifting aft.
Okay, I've skipped ahead a little bit here and zoomed in more to have the controls overlay over something dark so you can see it a little bit better. You can see that I have a little bit of left rudder in here, and I'm just managing the right throttle with the left engine in a low stage afterburner. I gotta be honest guys, this was pretty tough, but by listening to Jester and following the PDL system, I was able to stay in for the full transfer and depart the tanker safely. But it was definitely one of the harder refuels I've had to complete. And there we have it folks, refueling while having one engine and afterburner. What a great challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope it helps you get to grips with this amazing aircraft. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments and I'll get back to you when I can. I want to say a massive heartfelt thanks to the guys at Heatblur for their amazing work on this aircraft and for allowing me to get early access to it. It really has been a privilege to do this early access refuel tutorial. Alright my friends, until we meet again, look after yourself, your friends and your families. Top Gun and volleyball, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not Scott Manley. Fly safe.